Okay, let's start by introducing my colleague Ada Ackerman. She's a researcher at the CNRS in my research team, Talim. She's art historian. She's specialist of Eisenstein, and she working on the relationship on art and technology. She well known for having being the curator of the Golem exposition in Musée d'Art et d'Histoire du Judaïsme a few years ago, and she's organizing a seminar called Machine Vision. So I give the floor to you, Ada, for this very intriguing title of your keynote today. It's called in France, Le récit à l'épreuve du drone, the novel as Facing the Drone.
Thank you very much, Alexandre, and thank you very much to all the organizing committee for having invited me to this conference. Before I start my lecture, is it possible to activate the partage d'écran? Because I have a presentation I would like to share with you.
It's done.
Okay. No, I cannot load my presentation. It's written, it's deactivated.
It's activate. Done.
Okay, so here it is. Let me know if you see it.
Yes, fine.
Okay, perfect. So during the last decade, drones have increasingly integrated visual culture, with artists trying to tackle the issues of visibility and of vision which are at stake with drones. This leading to the emergence of drone art, a terminology coined by Thomas Stubblefield in an extremely stimulating essay published in 2020. And the same dynamics is at stake in literature. Among fictions revolving around IA, a new character has lately started to populate narratives, that is, the drone. And just to name a few titles in English and in French, as you can see, Frank Maslert, La Révolution des drones, Grounded by George Brandt, Tom Hillenbrand, Droneland, and so on. This droneization, if we can say, of culture is a consequence of our times being a drone age, as suggested by Chris Anderson, the CEO of Do-It-Yourself Drones. As a matter of fact, if initially developed as surveillance and military devices, drones have been provided with an expanding array of new applications in several areas, for instance, in entertainment, science delivery, and so on. And all these applications rely upon an increasing blurring and overlapping of civilian consumer and military industrial applications and network. And of course, this omnipresence of drones in our daily lives have only been increased by the context of pandemics. Drones, especially as apparatus born and designed from and for the military and surveillance sphere, drones, a symbol of the Western neo-imperial biopower, have fostered intense discussions over the use, raising ethical, moral, and epistemological issues. For instance, Grégoire Chamaillou, in Drone Theory, labels drones, as I quote him, unidentified violent objects as instruments of a necroethics. The American artist Trevor Paglen, who has dedicated much of his work to what is called today machine vision, which encapsulates drone visual data used in drone strikes, warns us in the following terms, I quote, "We've long known that images can kill. What's new is that nowadays they have their fingers on the trigger." And here you can see how Paglen reactivates classical narratives of machines' own agentivity, of a non-human agentivity, which in the end turns against humans. But beyond these crucial ethic concerns, Drones are an agent of troubles in our representations of relations between humans and machines because they are hard to define and to circumscribe due to a strong hybridity, as the writer Adam Rothstein suggests. We know what a drone is, but at the same time we don't. It's a heavy object full of undiagnosed complications. First, drone is a mixture of aircraft, robot, and computer, which means it inherits of various representations and the narratives associated to all these three technologies. Then, of course, a leisure drone is very different from a military one, and so are the images they produce. There is nothing in common between the sweeping and spectacular shots in first-person view produced by a leisure drone with the target data gathered by the military drone. Moreover, drone is characterized by a complex post-human entanglement of the operator and of the machine. That's why drone, which is sometimes labeled unmanned aerial vehicle, is in fact all but unmanned. Besides, drones, and especially the military one, rely upon a compound networking dynamics upon a disseminated technology, allowing sight and action at distance. Hence, as Thomas Stubblefield states it, drone is only a fleeting representative of a fluid system of relations that manifests through object. Its presence is non-definitive in itself. Finally, our conception and apprehension of drones are entangled in reality, of course, as well as in fiction, in utopia as well as in dystopia. And here again, I'm letting Rothstein speak. The drone exists, taking to the skies about our heads every day, taking us to the sky. But it also doesn't exist because it's shrouded in fantasy. The reality of the technology includes not only fact and fiction, but also hope and fear, our complicated history, and our plans for the future. The drone is a time traveler, a shapeshifter, a trickster, playing upon our preconceptions and emotions. Therefore, the drone is a content which can be invested with very different narratives, while by the same token, of course, drone changes our narratives. As Anna Feigenbaum suggests, drones affect not only what we think we can, but also how we think. And it is no wonder why so many creators have been interested in staging the drone in their works and in exploring its dramatic and semantic potentialities. My point today is to investigate in that respect how drones affect fiction and how fiction affects drones. I could discuss many works dealing with drones today, but since we have quite a short time, I will focus upon a novel in which the drone becomes the narrator, meaning that we identify with the drone and we see through its eyes, thanks to anthropomorphism and first-person discourse. My point is that such a detour strategy is productive in order to highlight drones' complex and hybrid essence, also in order to subvert the military-lethal agenda. As Daniel Green puts it, I quote, "Humans can never really empathize with a drone, but with the right push, we can approximate the work of drone vision and the networks that sustain it. Drone-centric cultural production is a political provocation and a demand to see the world as drones do and ask how and why they do so. At the same time, precisely thanks to its mechanical and technical characteristics, drones appear to be a powerful device for literature. What a better actualization for the omniscient narrator we could find than the eye of God, as Paul Virilio calls the drone. So today, I will discuss the novel L'Opium du Ciel, The Sky's Opium, by Jean-Noël Orengo, which was published in 2017. And it stages maybe the first literary drone. The drone is the main character and the narrator, and the old novel happens to be a drone's monologue, but a monologue of a machine endowed with the ability to feel emotions. And the drone being also a creative and imaginative machine moved by poetic and artistic drives. And in that sense, this novel could be encapsulated in Valérie Baudouin's Littératrothèque, which she was discussing these days. So, L'Opium du Ciel displays the first literary drone called Jérusalem, a drone which happens to be extremely cultivated, curious, witty, and eager to speak, for instance, about theology. Jérusalem is a unique drone because he's the result of a fusion of two opposite types of drones, a leisure one called Lovecraft and an American military one called CSNR 108, this being a shortcut for Claude Simon Nouveau Roman. Jérusalem the drone has been created by a couple of Israeli hippie pacifist hackers and is a unique drone because of its compound nature, which led him to be quite schizophrenic, just as Frankenstein's creature is monstrous because of its compound nature. This drone is endowed with a potentiality for unlimited empathy, as well as for an unlimited destructive power. And his hybrid status comes also from the fact that the drone is composed of elements from very different drone technologies of various periods, some extremely advanced and some already outdated. This fostering a dissonant entity and a fascinating mediatic combination, a unique mediatic monster, we could say, which is described in Orengo's term as a techno-metech machine, a techno-dago origins, we could say in English. And during the whole novel, as Jérusalem the drone hovers in the sky all over the world, it browses the memorized items from his two memory cards, which are sometimes conflicting, fostering several cognitive crises, as well as, to quote him, a chiaroscurus of ideas. And we could call these productions, following Gregory Chatonsky, machines' hallucinations. This schizophrenic mode engenders a fragmented and scattered poetics of memory, playing with literature power to revive the past. I quote the drone. It's like an anamnesis, this faculty of being able to remember one's past lives. They are others and mine at the same time. I often say I as I speak of them, or I name them by their names as if they were exterior to me. They are my ancestors and my present. And all my apologies for this translation, which is mine, because this novel hasn't been translated into English, and there is, of course, here a loss of quality in the language. In addition to that, Jérusalem the drone is sometimes overwhelmed by the content of his memories, especially the traumatic ones, leading to an extremely hectic stream of consciousness on the verge of delirium, translated into a harsh and staccato style, which raises the question of a possible parallel between human writing as a remedy to trauma and machines' bug and dysfunctionings. Through the detour of a drone, what is suggested is that human writing could be not so much a creative activity than a pathological one, that the author's obsessions are nothing but recurrent bugs. In brief, what is supposed to be the marker of human creativity is in fact reducible to mere automatism and predictable loops, a hypothesis which is at stake, for instance, in Antoine Bello's novel Ada, which was also discussed in this conference. In this novel, without surprise, Orengo plays on usual topoi of literature on IA. For instance, Jérusalem the drone suffers from his consciousness of being a machine different from humans, and which cannot therefore experience love, desire, about which he has only cold data statistics, a theoretical ideas, which lead him to the discovery of being excluded from these common experiences. And he also suffers classically from being a monstrous entity, trying to understand the motivations which lead his creators to endow him with life and to give him his hybrid configuration and appearance. And here we find, for instance, the same motto as Frankenstein's creature, who laments upon having been brought to life as a terrifying monster. But Orengo's treatment's originality stands in his idea of equating the drone with an omniscient narrator, therefore exploiting drone's verticality and panoramic view, drone's ability to rely upon a potential infinite data gathered by networks, to assemble it in thousands of combinations, not being limited in time nor in space. For him, for me, the four corners of the globe form the upholstered scope of my stray monologue. As a matter of fact, the drone is a super enhanced and networked eye, endowed with a refined technological apparatus, which functioning is a challenge for literature, as well as the stimulating component. And we can see how Orengo tries to appropriate these technological features in order to convert them into tools of a dynamic and kinesthetic description, that is, an attempt to translate machinic and algorithmic data into an efficient literature material. I quote, "A moving frame within which organizes, repeats itself, reorganizes a mocked-up reality, miniaturized but precise, detail, possessed by the demon of measure to the milliliter, of pure pixel, as if tracked by a sniffing cat cop, disposing of zooms, filters, accelerations and decelerations, endowed with vocal, optical, and olfactory recognition softwares, converting everything in keywords and then in sentences up to dizziness. The impression of a record listened and listened, hammered in all directions, the first tune endlessly following the last." Not only drone-centered perspective proves productive for literature, but the drone also stands in Orengo's novel as a potentially endlessly producing text machine. Jerusalem the Drone claims its frantic use of metaphors, of quotation marks, of strange and cryptic formulations, of neologisms, of ellipses, defining them as its principal tools and weapons. Moreover, Jerusalem the Drone is affected by a desire to know, by a descriptive bulimia, I quote, as if to describe meant to recreate in its slightest marvels the infractuosity of reality, endowing it with imagination's intuitions. So beyond all its flaws, Jerusalem the Drone appears above all as a perfect double of the writer, an enhanced and a phantasmatic double, disposing of an unlimited storage of images and words, of a tireless capacity of watching and describing, of a superhuman means of scrutinizing the world. In brief, Orengo's fictions reveal the hidden dream of a writer to be efficient as a machine. And I would suggest then, as a conclusion, that to stage in fiction the so-called creativity of AI, we have seen yesterday in Nevena Ivanov's keynote how much this concept must be discussed in order to dissociate it from a solely anthropomorphist perspective. So to stage in fictions the artificial images of machine is not only, I believe, a powerful reflexive gesture about the essence and the processes of a human literature activity, but also maybe a symptom of human writers' attempt to resist the emergence of non-human writers, or to put it differently, in a context of blurred distinctions between human and non-human creative agencies, such fictions should be construed as allowing the human writers to have the last say, but the remaining question being, for how long? And here I would like to end my talk. And if we have some remaining minutes in the discussion, I would be interested to share with you some excerpts of a short film which echoes to the problematic raised by Orengo's novel. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ada. Thank you so much. That was very suggesting. Maybe we got a few minutes for some question. We will be a little bit late for the first morning session.
And if there are no questions, I would be very happy to share this few minutes of a very fascinating short film called The Freestone Drone, which also stages a narrator, a drone narrator.
J'aurais peut-être une question, enfin désolé, mais mon niveau d'anglais est trop faible pour pouvoir poser des questions bien ordonnées dans cette langue. Donc, en vous écoutant, enfin, je me demandais quelle différence faisiez-vous entre les écritures donc des drones et celles des expériences de On the Road avec la voiture?
Alors, c'est vrai qu'il y a beaucoup de similitudes, mais évidemment, la grosse différence, c'est cette poétique et politique de la verticalité qui caractérise le drone et qui a aussi évidemment cette connotation qui est toujours présente et latente, puisque l'origine du drone est essentiellement militaire et un appareil de surveillance, comme je le rappelais. Donc il y a toujours en horizon d'attente et de perception cette idée d'une machine tueuse. Et toutes ces fictions-là qui tentent d'humaniser le drone sont aussi une manière d'exorciser, je crois, ce démon tueur. Mais il y a évidemment beaucoup de parenté. C'est pour ça que je rappelais en introduction que, en suivant les conclusions d'Adam Rothstein, qu'on ne peut pas parler des fictions qui tournent autour du drone sans prendre en compte l'héritage technologique du drone, à la fois, en effet, hein, des voitures, mais aussi de l'aviation, de l'ordinateur, puisqu'il hérite aussi de toutes ces fictions qu'il transforme, mais qu'il contribue aussi à alimenter.
Merci.
Merci. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions?
Sinon, je serais vraiment contente de
oui,
vous montrer.
Vas-y, oui, je veux bien. Écoute, je veux bien.
Ce que vous allez voir, c'est vraiment it's a fascinating piece. So I'm getting back to.
Je crois que I think Merida has a question.
Oh, ok.
Ah.
Non, je crois qu'il vaut mieux qu'on profite de voir. C'est tellement, ça va être intéressant. Merci.
Très bien. Donc c'est George Barber, 2013, The Freestone Drone. Oups.
On n'entend rien là.
Oui, j'essaie de voir si. Voilà.
Ouais.
So it was just to give you un aperçu. The piece is 15 minutes long, and if you are interested, I can send you the link so that you could discover it fully, because it's a very interesting hybrid form, and I'm sure you recognized also the subtext to the French Nouvelle Vague, the soundtrack for the content.
Dans un premier temps. En même temps, c'est aussi un secteur qui est très compétitif et avec des exigences.
Le
What's
son...
happening?
Non, c'est quelqu'un qui avait mis son son. Écoute, merci vraiment, Ada.